I was at the bank when she walked in with a phone to her ear. I didn't recognize her at first. I was going to walk over and say hi, but as soon as she looked up, she walked out and left. I ended things on a good note because I wasn't seeing any progress. This girl had a lot going on mentally, including severe social anxiety and frequent lying. Story 1, hard to say. Probably ignore her. Maybe say hi. Probably spend the rest of the day upset at being reminded that she exists. It might depend on how hungry I am and when the last time I relieved myself was. Story 2. Keep walking and act like we never knew each other. Especially what she did, cheated on me with her boss, and they both got fired. Story 3. I would try to avoid her. If that does not work, just make any excuse and leave that place as soon as possible. She was very bad to me and my family. She does not even deserve a greeting. Story 4. My ex and I work in the same hospital, but in different departments, so we run into each other occasionally. I barely recognize her. She has gained a lot of weight and cut her hair short. I do not feel anything when I see her. I go about my day as if I do not know who she is. Story 5. How fast am I driving and are there witnesses? I see my ex-wife somewhat frequently because of the children and drop-offs. I ignore her whenever there is no compelling need to engage. I have encountered ex-girlfriends and do not have any issues. None of those relationships ended badly. Story 6. If she wants to reconnect in a meaningful way for her, great. If not, that is also fine. We forgive for our own mental health. We had a connection, and as long as she is healthy, happy, and well, and I truly cared for her, that is what I would want for her without any conditions. Story 7. I would pretend I did not see them, but would be fine to have a conversation if they said hello. I am not on bad terms with ex-partners, but I do not care to pretend I am really interested in their lives anymore. Story 8. Depends on the ex. Most of the time, we would probably laugh about how silly we were as kids when we dated. The last ex before I met my wife tried to get me kicked out of the army by claiming I sexually assaulted her. So if I saw her, I would probably actually run out of the room. Story 9. I honestly don't know. If it were like a passing moment, a line at some place, seeing her on the other side of a restaurant, whatever, I think she'd just look at me with disgust and pretend I wasn't there. Not that I'd try to engage either. If it were a scenario where we'd be obligated to interact, I think I'd be as cordial as possible, and she'd be as dry or rude as possible without starting a fight. We broke up on horrible terms. No one cheated or did anything specific. The relationship just slowly died due to multiple factors, and we were too immature to actually solve anything. We were holding things together with codependency until she decided it was enough, and then I had an absolute meltdown and made her hate me within a month through sheer desperation. Then she got together with some random guy because she's the type of person who can't stay single, and we never talked anymore except for one time when I had to ask her to cancel a service that had her credit card with my phone number on it for some reason. She was polite but as impersonal as possible that one time. I never really got over her, even after almost 6 years. I tried filling in the gaps with casual dating, but it just wears me out and makes me think I hate dating, and that everything would have been perfect if I had been just a little more mature. So, back to the initial question, I think it would be something of a punch in the gut. Just seeing her face would probably throw me off my very thin mental balance for a week, if not more. One of those he saw a ghost moments, followed by an image of her face burned into my mind to create cruel new dreams. Story 10. I ignored former partners when I ran into them. However, I have moved a few times since, so I do not really have to deal with it. Story 11. My ex is currently living in my guest room by my wife's decision, as they recently divorced. So I would probably ask if she was making coffee and if she could make me a cup. Story 12. That depends on the ex. The last one, yes, fine, we catch up occasionally. One before that, definitely no. Before that, absolutely not. Before that, I would like to, but I doubt she feels the same. Story 13. Chances are almost zero, but I would probably give her a quick hi and move on with whatever I am doing. It is strange how someone who I wanted to be with all the time during our time together is now not worthy of my time anymore. Story 14. Leave immediately. Ex-partners are ex-partners for reasons. Whatever those reasons may have been, They are best left in the past where they can do no further harm. Story 15. Depends on the ex. I might say hello, turn the other way and run, or start a conversation and make plans to meet. Story 16. Many decades and many years of dates, flings, and exes under my belt. By some sheer stroke of luck, I have yet to run into a girl from my past anywhere. What I would say or do depends on the girl, who I am with, who she is with, and where we are. If we were both alone, maybe a quick hi as we pass each other. If she wanted to have a friendly chat, I would oblige. If she were with a man or I were with a new girl, I would just pretend I never saw them and avoid contact. Story 17. I saw my ex-fiancée for the first time in probably 8 years just the other day. She looks so different I would not have recognized her if I had not seen her husband first. He has red hair and is hard to miss. I smiled and kept walking because she is not a big fan of mine. Story 18. For me, it's like an old friend. If we don't talk, then we don't talk. I wouldn't be against a quick, hey, how have you been? But I wouldn't cross the room to say hi either. The only ones I'd say hi to are the two whose numbers I have and still check in with every few months. There's a couple we ended on bad terms with that I'd run a mile from, and the others? Like I said, I'm not mortified at the idea of the conversation, but if I don't think she's seen me, then I'm more than happy to keep moving. Story 19. Honestly, if I thought I could get away with it, I would probably drive off without calling the paramedics or the highway patrol. Story 20. Polite and friendly but utterly disinterested in spending any time with them longer than socially necessary to avoid being rude. Story 21. I share a hobby with one ex, so we exchange pleasantries, but that is about it. If I see any of the others and we make eye contact, I smile and might make small talk depending on the response. If they do not notice me, I just leave them be. Story 22. I went to a yoga class less than a week after my wife and I separated. She initiated it after more than 11 years together. I walked in and there she was with a date. I put my mat down and looked right at her as she was talking to him. She saw me eventually and gasped. A few minutes later, she rolled up her mat and walked out, saying sorry as she passed by me. I didn't say anything, but I was absolutely shattered inside. He walked out after her. I stayed for the class. The theme was all about rebirth. It was perhaps the most painful, cleansing, and profound hour of my life. Story 23. I get on fairly well with most of my ex-partners. One is in my weekly Dungeons and Dragons campaign. Others are vaguely in my social circle. We often end up at the same public events and chat. Story 24. I'm friendly with all my ex-partners and occasionally bump into or speak to them on social media to casually catch up, except for one. Story 25. My first ex, wave hello and ask how he has been. My second ex, I avoid eye contact and leave immediately. He is a scary person with felony charges including drug offenses, violent robbery, and statutory rape. He had an obsession with me that required a restraining order, my brother threatening him, and eventually him being sent back to prison to make him leave me alone. Story 26. It happened. I came to our mutual storage to get something, and she was there taking all her belongings. I just said, I'll come back another time. Story 27. I don't know, to be honest. She treated me like absolute garbage, but at the same time, I can tell she had a lot on her plate. She had severe mental health issues she needed to address, as well as a drinking problem. We are better off apart than we ever were together. I would be happy to see she was doing well if she was. I went full no contact, so part of me feels like I have so much to say to her, but now I am in a much healthier place, and I know that would accomplish nothing. There would probably be some shock at first from not seeing her in years, and I would keep it moving. Story 28. I stopped contact with my ex-wife right after I found out. I saw her twice in court but refused to speak to her. I did not see her for 4 years until I encountered her in a restaurant. As soon as we saw each other, she broke down crying. I had just been seated, so I got up and walked out. She followed me, trying to share details of her life. She had the nerve to say she has not had children, she knows I really wanted children, and has not been dating, claiming that we were meant to be and that there is no chance otherwise. Story 29. Depends on the ex. With most, I would say hello and leave the option to pursue any more elaborate conversation up to them. With one or two, I would try to discreetly and silently disappear. Story 30. I see my ex-wife every week to pass off our dog since we jointly care for the dog, and it is okay. My dog is fairly old, so when she passes, I think it is possible I will never see my ex again. Story 31. I usually give them a hug. I have never had a bad relationship, and we all still care about each other. Casual relationships are awkward because I am really bad at those. Story 32. I would step back and let my wife handle her. I struggle to be even a strictly professional type of friendly. She did unforgivable things. My son has emotional scars he cannot heal. Story 33. I don't know if I can really call her my ex because we didn't date long enough, but I did see her. I would probably get nostalgic, but I would not go up to her since she already moved on from me. Story 34. It would literally be no big deal. My ex-wife and I are still friends, and I still talk to many of my ex-girlfriends. The ones I don't talk to are not because of any major issue. We simply went our separate ways and lost contact. My wife now knows who they are and is very understanding. Story 35. Honestly, I would probably start a conversation. I am on really good terms with two of my ex-partners. I speak to one regularly. Story 36. Depends on which one, but if it was someone I left on bad terms with or do not like, I would just smirk and keep moving. I have a few ex-partners that I left on good terms with and have mutual friends, so if I saw them I would say hello. It also depends on where it was. Date night? I would pretend we did not see each other. Randomly somewhere else is a different story. Story 37. Pretend I do not recognize her. In fairness to me, I have mild face blindness and probably would not be able to recognize her if she did not introduce herself. Story 38. If it was my former classmate from high school, I would honestly be interested in how they have been. I would stop briefly and chat to catch up. Story 39. I brought my wife to a mini college reunion last year, and two of my ex-girlfriends were at the same table with us. The three of them immediately told each other all the stories about me. It was not awkward at all. Story 40. Which one? The one from the long relationship. I would tell her to mind her own business and stop stalking my profile and that of my new girlfriend. She should worry about her dogs, dialysis, and her fake babies. The side girl I had when I was with the long-term partner, I would say sorry for the way I treated her. She was good to me, and I treated her badly because of my long-term ex. The other side girl that I dated for a month or so, she is married now. I congratulated her years ago. I hope she is doing well. Story 41. Depends on which ex. One of them I'm still friends with. It turns out we really are much better friends than in a relationship. We hang out and occasionally travel together, sleeping in separate beds. She still texts my mom. There is absolutely no romantic interest from either of us anymore, but we enjoy hanging out. She is my best friend. We are both single now, so this is not causing issues with partners. My other ex, on the other hand, I don't even know. We dated for 6 years. We bought a dog and a house. Legally, I bought the house and she was paying me rent, but it was definitely our house. I thought she was the one and was even looking at rings. She dumped me on Christmas while at her parents' house for another ex of hers whom she ran into in her hometown. I never really got over that. I don't even know what I would say to her. I would be an emotional wreck. Story 42. Which one? I'm friendly with most of them. There is one that I feel I would either throw up and run away or completely freeze and not say anything. Story 43. I would actually be pretty excited to catch up. I am very happily married now with a child. She was an important part of who I am. I made many mistakes when I was a young man, and they helped me grow into a more respectable person. I would wish her well and hope to hear that she is doing well too. That being said, I would not reach out. We broke up 17 years ago for a reason. I do not know if she is still bitter about it. Story 44. I see her all the time. I check in and make sure she is doing well. If she needs to vent, I allow it. I see several former partners on a regular basis. They are former partners for a reason, but I also do not hate them, so we are getting along. Story 45. I would actually be pretty happy. We ended on a good note and still talk regularly. We would probably go grab a bite to eat or relax and watch television. She is always welcome. Story 46. It depends on which one and what state of mind I am in. I encountered one at the rodeo in March and it was fine. I was with my wife and she gained 50 pounds. I won. Story 47. Do not care about any of them. I would just walk the other way. I am happy with someone else now. I have no desire to entertain them. Story 48. I think I would say hi and maybe try to apologize. We did not end on bad terms. We just stopped texting each other at the same time, and I have always felt uncomfortable about it. Story 49. My ex walked out on me unexpectedly 5 months before our wedding date. I don't hate her, but I would be happy if I never see her again. When or if I do, I will be cordial but avoid small talk. Story 50. The last time I saw my ex was in 2019. I noticed her, walked by, and continued about my day. Story 51. Well, I have apologized for wasting her time. I was a different man back then. We share a child together. Story 52. I will probably come back later for whatever I need. We did not end things on good terms, and I would like to avoid her when possible. Story 53. I thought I saw her in a store once. I did what I could to avoid her and pointed her out to my wife. In the end, I do not think it was actually her, but it was not an interaction I was interested in having, so I was erring on the side of caution. Story 54. Depends on the person. I have not talked to my ex-wife in years, but we ended things on a warm and friendly note. She would probably be interested in what I am up to, and so would I. In fact, most exes I would be happy or at least pleased to see. I did date one woman for almost 2 years. Her anger issues became difficult to manage, and I would rather not see her again. She did not like me leaving her even though I supported her through what she needed to do to stay together. She was a stubborn, angry woman. Story 55. Depends on which executable. I parted on good terms with most. One breakup was not so good. If I saw her first, I would make every effort to remain unseen. Story 56. I would say hello because I am on good terms with all of my ex-partners. There is only one person who would surprise me if I ran into her, but that is because she passed away 10 years ago. It would be unsettling to encounter any ghost. Story 57. I can get along with almost all of my ex-partners, so I would probably wave hello and, if they walked over, have a short conversation. Story 58. Depends on the ex. One would receive a hug and a genuinely warm greeting. One would get ignored. One would make me feel nauseous and cause me to abandon whatever I was setting out to do. Story 59. I would walk in the other direction. I will not let his presence ruin my day or allow him to be within 10 feet of me. Things ended fine, but I do not need to see or talk to him. Story 60. I have dinner with my former wife at least once a week. She is still my best friend. We are just not married anymore. I have had many more former partners than her as well, and I still keep in touch with a few of them. Just because romantic love ends, it does not mean the person you loved once is not still there. Move on with positivity and acceptance. Story 61. Well, I would be very surprised because they are across the Atlantic. However, if it were possible for us to meet, I have 4 ex-partners, including 1 ex-fiancé. 1. Warm embrace, ex-fiancé. 2. Shoot her in the face. 3. Extend my arm. I know she would just sit next to me. Warm embrace. Story 62. I ran into him by being seated at a table right next to him and his ex-wife with my new boyfriend last week. Story 63. We were married 7 years. She left me a single dad and then sued me for custody after I got remarried. My initial reaction was a sharp pang of panic. I live in a different country now. Story 64. I would be a gentleman. I would not make an effort to speak, but I would acknowledge them if we made eye contact. Story 65. Oh, I have a good one. I ran into mine about 6 or 7 years ago. I hadn't seen her since we broke up years earlier. She cheated, mostly her fault, a little mine, honestly. We caught up for 5 minutes or so. She was still working the same job, living the same life, still with the man she cheated on me with. He was still in the same retail job. There's nothing wrong with that, just a lack of progression. She had put on a lot of weight. She looked like her mother, honestly, which she used to worry about since she was a little vain. The last time she'd seen me, I was about 250 pounds. I was back down to 185, which I was when we first met and still am. She asked what I was doing these days. I said, head of software engineering for a company down south. She asked, still living in your apartment? I said, no, we bought a house in a nice village outside of town. That's when she noticed the wedding ring. I wished her Merry Christmas and went home to my loving wife. Sometimes there isn't really a lot to say. I don't owe her any ill will, but I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a tiny sliver deep down that derived some enjoyment from that. Story 66. Immediate severe anxiety and anger, along with the feeling of my brain trying to tell me I miss him, when I actually resent everything he has done to me. Story 67. Depends on which one. I think for the most part, I'm going to pretend I never saw them. Less than a handful I greet like old friends because they were kind, emotionally warm human beings and treated me as such during our breakup. For that, I am ever grateful and would not treat them so poorly as to ignore their existence or wish ill upon them. One, though, if fate aligns and I happen to be with my significant other when it happens, then, Lord willing, my significant other will strike my ex as hard as possible. I have standing orders that this is to happen should she ever meet my ex in public, and I hope to be there to witness it. Of course, I don't think that will happen because last I heard she moved to a different state. But there is still a small chance. I do have family where she moved to, and I did recently visit the city. Might visit again for a family event at some point, so who knows. Story 68. Say hi and give a big hug. She would hug back and we would chat a bit to catch up. One of my exes is now my best friend, so there is no counting her. Laughing out loud. Story 69. I run into her frequently. I give her a hug and kiss her on the cheek. Then I do the same to all my other close friends. Story 70. Be really surprised. Either I am dead or seeking a ghost. Figures that person tries to still make my life miserable. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.